The wind rolled across the Arizona desert like a warning, tossing sand against the face of the cowboy named Colton Reeves as he rode slow toward the creek where the Apache camps once stood, their fires long gone, their songs stolen by war and grief, and though he had seen storms, ambushes, and men's cruelty more times than he cared to admit, nothing unsettled him more than the memory of the widowed Apache woman he'd rescued months ago, the one who now waited by the water's edge, washing the blankets she had stitched together to survive the winter alone. Her name was Nayeli, meaning "I love you" in the old tongue, though life had given her little love. She turned when she heard Colton's horse, her long black hair falling like a curtain across her shoulders, her eyes deep as night but shadowed with something heavier than loneliness. Colton dismounted, slow, careful, the way a man approaches a wounded animal, because he knew Nayeli trusted no one, not after the soldiers burned her village, not after white settlers chased her tribe from the valley, not after the men who carried guns and promises tried to take her body as if it were something cheap. She stood stiff, her hands trembling as she wrung out the blanket, and asked him in a voice that shook like a trapped bird, "Cowboy, do you only want my body like the others?" Her question cut through him, raw and unguarded, bringing back the quiet nights he'd found her crying beside the ashes of her husband's grave, the way she flinched whenever men rode too close, the way she pushed him away even as she watched him with a flicker of longing she was too scared to name. Colton stepped closer, not touching her yet, his voice low as he said, "I'm here because your life matters more than what anyone tried to take." But Nayeli backed up, her breath quickening, the pain in her eyes twisting into anger because she didn't know how else to defend herself. She whispered that every man who came before him had wanted the same thing, her body, her surrender, her silence, and that a widow with no tribe was prey in a world where mercy died with the buffalo. Colton swallowed hard, remembering how he'd found her, hiding beneath a broken wagon, half-starved, ready to fight him with nothing but a stone. He had given her food, fire, and space, never touching her without permission, never asking for anything, yet still, the walls around her heart were thick as canyon stone. As she stared at him now, the desert sun shining against the tears she tried to hide, Colton realized she was testing him, not to push him away, but to see if there was a single man left in the world who wanted more than her body, more than her survival, more than the scars fate forced on her. He took off his hat, placing it gently on the ground like a vow, and told her he wasn't here to claim her, he was here to protect her from every man who ever would. Nayeli's breath caught, her anger cracking beneath the weight of her aching loneliness. She remembered how he helped mend her shelter, how he sat outside her door each night to keep wolves and worse things away, how he never once crossed a boundary even when she fell asleep leaning on his shoulder. But fear makes even truth look dangerous, and so she asked again with trembling defiance, "Then why do you come back to me?" The question struck him harder than any bullet. He wanted to tell her everything, that her courage was the first beautiful thing he'd seen since losing his own wife, that her strength woke something gentle in him he thought had died with his past, that he would burn the whole desert to keep her safe. But he spoke slow, careful, because a woman who has been hurt learns to run from anything that feels too real. He said he came back because her soul mattered, because her voice mattered, because she deserved a life where no man could touch her without love in his hands and honor in his bones. Nayeli looked away, gripping the fabric so tightly her knuckles whitened, her voice a trembling whisper as she confessed she didn't know how to trust, how to hope, how to believe a man's words when all she'd seen were broken promises and men hungry for her body, not her heart, not her grief, not her dreams. Colton closed the distance between them, stopping just one breath away, and said that trust wasn't something she owed him, it was something he was willing to earn every day. Her eyes softened, her pulse loud enough he could hear it in the silence, and for the first time she didn't step back when he lifted his hand. But he didn't touch her, he let his hand hover just inches from hers, letting her choose. Slowly, trembling, she reached out, barely brushing his fingertips, her touch so light it felt like the beginning of a prayer. In that moment, something inside her cracked open, not a wound, but a door. The desert wind shifted, the sky turning gold, and Nayeli whispered, almost to herself, that maybe not every man wanted her body. Maybe one man wanted her soul. And as Colton stood with her at the water's edge, he silently vowed to be that man, no matter how long it took for her heart to believe him. And if you're still watching this story unfold, make sure to subscribe, because Chapter 2 will take you deeper into the fire, the danger, and the love that can rise from ashes. Night came heavy over the desert, the kind that pressed on the skin like prophecy, and Colton sat by the fire near Nayeli's shelter, listening to the crackle of burning mesquite while she watched him from the doorway with eyes that no longer hid from him but still held storms. She had slept the night before without trembling, without waking from nightmares, and though she would never admit it, the only reason she felt safe was because he had kept vigil outside, leaning against a stone with his rifle across his knees, guarding her like a promise carved into eternity. But safety in the west never lasted long. Riders appeared at dawn. 3 men with dust on their coats and cruelty in their laughter, claiming they were just passing through, but the way they looked at Naeli made Colton's blood turn iron. They asked who the Apache widow belonged to, and when Colton stepped in front of her, they smirked, saying he must be another man hungry for her body. Naeli froze, fear returning like lightning striking an old wound, and Colton saw her slip back into the place where every shadow carried danger. The men's words were filth, meant to break her spirit, meant to remind her what the world expected from a woman without a tribe. But Colton's voice came out like a warning growl as he told them to leave, and when the tallest man reached for Naeli's arm, Colton's fist cracked against his jaw so hard the desert birds scattered from the trees. A gunfight erupted, dust, shouting, bullets slicing the air, but Colton moved like a man with something worth dying for. He shoved Naeli behind a boulder, taking 2 bullets through his coat, missing flesh by inches, and firing back with precision born from years of surviving a world made by violence. When the last man fled bleeding into the horizon, Colton staggered, breath heavy, and Naeli rushed to him, grabbing his shirt with trembling hands as she whispered his name over and over like she couldn't believe he chose her life over his own. She pressed her forehead against his chest, shaking, and for the first time since losing her husband, she cried, not from fear, but from the unbearable truth that someone had fought for her with a love deeper than words. Colton lifted her chin with a gentle hand, looking into eyes that finally showed trust, fragile, trembling, but real. Naeli whispered that no man had ever protected her without demanding her body in return, until him. She told him she didn't know how to give her heart, didn't know if she could love again, didn't know how to live in a world where safety felt like a dream. Colton touched her cheek softly, answering that love wasn't something she owed, it was something she deserved, something he would never rush or claim. He told her that he didn't fight for her body, he fought for her spirit, for the right she had to live without fear, to heal, to choose a future that belonged to her and no one else. His voice shook as he admitted he had feelings he didn't fully understand yet, feelings that scared him as much as they scared her, but he would never use them to trap her. Instead, he gave her a choice: he could leave if she wanted him gone, or he could stay until she was ready to decide what she wanted for her own life, her own heart, her own freedom. Naeli stepped closer, placing her palm against his chest, right over the heartbeat that had risked itself for her. She said she didn't want him to leave. Not yet. Not ever. She told him she might never be the woman she once was, but if he walked with her, slowly, gently, she could learn to trust the world again. Their foreheads touched, the fire flickering like fate around them, and the desert felt less like a battlefield and more like the beginning of something sacred. As dawn rose behind them, Naeli whispered that no man had ever chosen her soul before her body, and Colton answered that her soul was the only thing he ever came for. Their story had only begun, written in courage, danger, and a love growing from ruins, and if you want more chapters of their journey, make sure to subscribe, because the next part of this tale will burn brighter than anything you've heard yet.